Anytime tragedy strikes, whether it's a missing plane full of hundreds of people or the shooting we saw at Fort Hood this week, there are victims. And there are family members and friends of the victims. And there are the reporters who were assigned to go and tell their stories. And any reporter who's had to do that will tell you it's an awful thing to have to call or to knock on the door of a mother or a sister or a son who has just lost someone they love. Those calls are sometimes met with rage. But here's the thing. More often, we're met with open arms by families who want to talk about their loved ones, who want the world to see a human face behind the terrible headlines. CNN's Carol Costello has been in that position many times in her career, and this week, she wrote an op-ed about it for CNN.com. She joins me now from Chicago. Carol, thanks for joining me.
Anytime, Brian, thanks.
You mentioned to me off camera that you were nervous to write about this. Well, why is that? And what do you want viewers at home to know about how the media treats victims and families of victims?
Well, I was nervous to write this op-ed because it's a difficult topic, and I don't think that people really understand it unless they're in it. At face value, it seems so insensitive. How could anyone approach someone, you know, in their most psychic pain and ask them, quote, how they feel? But journalists do that all the time. It's actually part of our jobs. When I saw the families of those aboard that Malaysia Airlines jetliner, and they were collapsing and screaming out their psychic pain, and doctors were taking them away on stretcher, those images actually, they made me sick to my stomach. I found them intrusive as a journalist. But other images portrayed during that time of the victims' families marching on the Malaysian embassy in China, demanding answers for their loved ones aboard that plane, those images made me proud because that's really our job, to give voice to the voiceless, power to the powerless. We could take these families' demand, we could put them on a global stage, and we could force the Malaysian government to act, which it did.
But I wonder if you can't have one without the other. If you can't have the wonderful images of them going to protest without those intrusive images from the press conference.
Well, I don't think there's any right or wrong answer to that because emotion is so powerful. And honestly, you don't really know whether victims want to talk. Now, I will say at the time, this was breaking and it was live. And sometimes you make bad decisions when there's live breaking news. But later, when you're able to step back, you should, as a responsible journalist, say, how much is too much? And should we show these images again and again and again? And in my personal opinion, and I guess my professional opinion as a journalist, we should be very stingy in those kinds of images that are portrayed on television.
Your op-ed got so many reactions this week. The most favorited comment was this one. It's about ratings and profit, this person wrote. And then I can't read it all. There was a curse word edited out, but they said news organizations don't care about the grieving family members whose faces they're shoving their cameras into. It's about ratings and profit. But what do you say to that commenter?
I think part of that's fair, but I will say viewers watch. They watch in droves. So I would say to that gentleman who wrote that comment to my op-ed, viewers are in part to blame because they want to hear too. And it's not just because they're being exploited themselves. It's because when we hear victim stories, it helps us make sense of the world. In other words, when we hear victim stories and we hear how that victim reacted to what happened to them, it helps us make sense of the world. It helps us see that there is hope, that there is such a thing as survival, and there is such a thing as going on.
Yeah. Another commenter on the op-ed wrote this: when my brother killed himself, a journalism student from the University of Iowa actually lied to the hospital and told them she was his sister just to try to get the story. And he says, thankfully, the hospital did not go along with it. But that makes me think this is so much about ethics. There are some clear rights and wrongs here, although there's a lot of blurriness in the middle. And that's a clear wrong. Lying to get the story is something that would not pass muster.
Look, Brian, in every business there are bad apples. There are bad journalists in the world. There are a lot of bad journalists, just like there are a lot of bad bankers in the world. Every business has its has people who shouldn't be working in that business, and journalism is no exception. Most of my colleagues, most of the people that I've known through my 30 years in broadcasting are very sensitive. They are. And they loathe picking up that phone and calling someone in the midst of like personal pain. They don't want to do that. But it is part of their job. But I will add this caveat.
Yeah.
There better be a good journalistic reason for us to call. We just can't simply call to ask how you feel. There's got to be a reason for that. And that's where the journalist exhibits responsible behavior.
Carol Costello, thank you for joining me and sharing your op-ed with us.
Anytime, Brian.